The session which we are going to begin now is a special session which we have brought to you, and this talks about doctors who work as the face of healthcare delivery. And when they work as a face of this healthcare delivery, how we perceive them. Sometimes we perceive them as God, sometimes as superhuman, and sometimes we also even forget to perceive them as human. What do we expect as patient when we reach to a doctor? Every one of us goes with an expectation of the outcome which is in favor of us. Our doctors do try to get that outcome for us, but can they decide the final health outcome? And if they are not getting the outcome we expect, what is our responsibility towards these doctors? We have seen that if you go to even a classroom and ask children about their career aspiration, almost half of them will answer that they want to be a doctor. That probably also explains the impact of doctors in our lives. Not only do they help controlling our fevers, settle our fractured bones or any other illness which we face, but also have a godlike stature with their service towards terminal illness. Even when we give up hope, they many times persist and often succeed also. Are they gods really, and how we should look at them? We have a wonderful panel with us. We have Dr. Debashish Danda from CMC Vellore. He is the head of Rheumatology and Immunology department. We have Dr. Bhawna Sirohi from Max Hospital, and then we have Dr. H.S. Chhabra from Indian Spinal Injuries, is a specialty hospital for the spinal injuries and center of excellence. And we have Dr. Shuchin Bajaj, who is the founder director of Ujala Cygnus Hospital, and also one of the frontline COVID-19 warrior who is treating and providing care to the COVID-19 patients in his dedicated COVID-19 hospital in Delhi. So let me begin this session, and I would like to hear, and this is a session where we would like to hear your life experiences, your real experiences when patients came to you and they wanted a certain outcome. You tried your best and still something does not happen the way we all of us expect at some time. And how did you feel? How do you feel as a doctor when your patients are not surviving? And how do you feel as a doctor when you are able to make a patient achieve the healthy life again? So let me begin this discussion with Dr. Debashish Danda. Dr. Danda, what's your take on this? How you have been feeling all these years of your medical practice, and how many times do you really feel that this notion of kind of godifying doctors sometimes take the whole essence of this practice away?
Thank you very much, first of all, for arranging such a...
Sir, your voice is little low. Can you speak a little louder? So sorry.
Thank you for this initiative, which is very innovative, and I think it's very rewarding for the doctors also to introspect as well as share with others what they really go through in their life. Yes, certainly we all know that no medical science or no medicine can ever make man immortal. So there is going to be deaths always across our board. So that is part of our profession. Deaths are inevitable in some cases. What matters is possibly the lack of communication. Whenever there is a poor communication between the treating team and the patient party, which may not be always intentional. It is because of paucity of time, the environment, the circumstances. It is the lack of communication which creates that sort of uh, what shall I say, not so happy expression by the patients. But I have more to remember with happiness, more to remember where we were appreciated. So I will not say that it is. I don't regret even one day of my profession. There are many cases where we had results much more than our expectation. And as you know, for a doctor, which I would like to convey to all the viewers, that for a doctor, there's nothing bigger as a happiness than the patient getting better. Just a simple question that people have to ask to themselves: what does a doctor get by the patient not being all right or not being happy? No doctor deliberately ever makes any patient not doing well. So, for the biggest reward the doctor gets is when the patient gets better. When the patient gets, when there is not a good outcome, there will be always unhappiness. The unhappiness is possibly, it can be minimized if we have a clear, regular, what shall I say, education of the patient and relatives, and an ongoing education in various through the various media to remove the misconceptions, myths about medical profession. As you said, that the people respect you as God when you have a good outcome, and sometimes not so God when we don't have a not so good outcome. So this is natural. We can minimize it by communication. So I think that is one thing on the part of us as doctors. We should be able to spend time in explaining to the patients. Uh, as I told you, that the doctor has predominantly 4 or 5 roles. The number one is a clinician who treats patients to make patients better. Nobody intentionally treats in such a way that patients should die. Nobody does it. No one will do it ever. So this is a simple fact which people often forget. Number two, as a teacher, the word doctor came from a Latin word called docere. It means to teach. The biggest responsibility of the doctor is to teach the patients and the people, the society, about the disease, the complications, the natural course, the available treatment, the side effects, the cost of treatment, and long-term outcome. This is where this is the most important part of all the roles of the doctors in patient care is patient education. Number three is apart from teaching your students. Number three is research. There has to be research and teaching to improve your patient care. You don't do research like a Rubik's Cube game. It's not anything for fun. It should have a relevant research question. So that is another important role of doctors. And the fourth, my father always told me that you're not doing enough of that. And I'm happy that IHW are doing that role. Is the social role of doctors. The social role of doctors is something which is often ignored by the doctors because it is not inculcated in our minds during medical education. The doctors are social beings, and what the people forget, the fifth role, the doctor as a human being with family members around him and his personal life, his personal ambitions and obligations. So all these 5 roles, I think, are not to be forgotten. And we as doctors will not feel bad when the patient gets angry when there is a bad outcome because it is not a real reaction, it is only an impulsive reaction in most of the situation. So overall, I would say I remember more of good things in life than bad things, and I'm happy and not at all regretful of the profession.
Thank you so much, Dr. Danda. You highlighted that the doctors have the social responsibility, and many times that maybe get overlooked. But so let me go with the same question to, and I should have started with that way. Dr. Chhabra, you two are providing care for patients who come with sometime fatal or maybe disabling spinal injuries and many other injuries which can lead to the similar kind of consequence. What do you expect and what do you feel? Dr. Chhabra, you are with us? Dr. Chhabra? I think he
Phone is muted. His phone appears muted. muted.
is okay. So then I will have to, Dr. Shuchin Bajaj, you are with us, I believe.
Yes, Kamalji, I'm here.
Okay, so let me go to Dr. Shuchin Bajaj then. Dr. Bajaj, now you have been treating and your hospital have been providing treatment. Dr. Chhabra is back. Should I go back to Dr. Chhabra then?
Yeah, sure, please.
Dr. Chhabra, then okay, as I'm settling between two stalwarts now. Dr. Chhabra, so I asked a question that you are treating patients who are getting, spinal injuries or many other injuries which can lead to death or disability and permanent disability. When they come to you, and you are definitely at a time you would be able to get them back to the life on their feet again, and sometime it may not be in your hand and they may see the consequence of either death or permanent disability. How do you manage these expectations when they come? And I'm sure everyone who comes to you would come that you will be able to give that solution, you will be able to give back life or the movement for them.
Yeah, you have raised a very important question. You see, we deal with patients where the outcomes are not always as good as they would be with other specialties. Like, just to give you an understanding, if somebody gets a spinal cord injury, and if the injury is complete, then no matter what we do across the globe, we don't have a technology such that the patient will recover neurology below the level of the injury. So they are likely to be on a wheelchair for life. And what we then need to do is rehabilitate them. Also, we deal in a specialty, as you pointed out, which does not only have not as great outcomes, but where mortality is also, morbidity and mortality is also very high, right? So they are prone to complications, and complications could involve any part of the human organ system, right? You could have urinary tract complications, you could have cardiovascular complications, gastrointestinal complications, name a part of the body and you can have complications due to that. Then you have a very high mortality, like cervical spine, upper cervical spine injuries may carry as much as a 10 to 25% mortality even in the developed countries. And also these patients need to undergo treatment, comprehensive management. And by comprehensive management, we don't only mean the acute and the surgical management, but also comprehensive rehabilitation, which may be physical rehabilitation, because we need to train them to be able to get back to their normal lifestyles with whatever muscle power they have, with the paralysis that they have. We need to train their bowel and bladder, which is also generally affected. We need to psychosocially rehabilitate them. We need to vocationally rehabilitate them. We need to sexually rehabilitate them. And we need to look at community inclusion so that they can get back into the community and lead a normal lifestyle. So they are in the hospital for a long duration. So when the outcomes are not as great as with the other specialties, when the patient needs to be in the hospital for a long time and then the expenses are more, when there is a high morbidity and mortality, and then when you can only assure them that we will try to get you back to a normal lifestyle from a wheelchair, depending on the level of the lesion. So it poses a big challenge to the doctor, the team, and the institution as such. We have tried to ensure that we reduce patient dissatisfaction to the minimum. And I think one of the very important things in this is giving a realistic expectation at the word go, right? So you have to let them know what they would expect from the management at the hospital. So if you set real expectations, then the chances of patient dissatisfaction are low. But imagine a young individual who has just had a road traffic accident and who is not able to move his lower limbs. And if you try to set his expectations right, that you will be on a wheelchair for life, you may not survive, right? That is also not appropriate, and that is not psychologically appropriate. So we generally would inform the attendants very appropriately about the realistic expectations, and there has to be a right time when we break the news on the patient. Generally, once the spine has been stabilized, the patient has been mobilized, has started going to the rehabilitation department, and he sees other patients, and then the team together decides what is the right time to break the news on the patient. So one very important aspect is setting realistic expectations. The other thing is that we generally involve a multidisciplinary team in all aspects. In goal setting, right? What are the realistic expectations? In communication with the patient, you will see doctors are generally busy and you need to have a multidisciplinary team for spinal injury management. So a doctor or a primary treating surgeon is one small component of the whole team. So you will have other doctors, like you may have a urologist to look after bladder management, gastroenterologist, you may need to have chest physicians, other doctors who would look into various complications. But in the rehabilitation team, you need to have physiotherapists, occupational therapists, psychologists, social worker, peer counselor, orthotist, dietitian. So there is a huge team which is required. I have only mentioned some of them. And nursing also assumes critical importance, so that the patient doesn't get lost and the attendants don't get lost in this big team. You have to have a case manager who will serve as an intermediary between the patient and the whole team. So has to keep the patient brief, has to participate in weekly goal planning, monitoring meetings, has to set realistic expectations. So communication also becomes very vital. And I must acknowledge that as doctors, though there is increasing awareness now, very less emphasis is put on communication skills in our curriculum. And this, because we are dealing with human beings, this may be a very important skill to imbibe. You may be the best doctor anywhere, you may be the best surgeon, but unless you can communicate appropriately with the patient, there are good chances of a patient dissatisfaction. Right? Now, in our profession, in our field, also we have to draw a fine line between sympathy and empathy. Right? These people who are paralyzed, you have to build that confidence in them. And if you sympathize with them, you are doing more damage than you are doing good. So you have to empathize with them. You have to empower them to be able to come back to a normal lifestyle. So a compassionate treatment, compassionate interaction, but which should have a fine balance. You should not sympathize, you should empower them. That should be the key. But we try to resort to all this to have patient satisfaction. At the word go, we also counsel them about the likely expenses that are going to be We face the challenge because when people come to know that this hospital can also give free treatment, people may drive in Mercedes, but they want free treatment. They will get a BPL card from anywhere. So you have to have your processes very right, and you have to tell them, okay, at the word go, we have given you an estimate. If you are not able to afford it, you should not accept it, right? But very often after 4 days, they will come with a letter from the minister, or they will come with a BPL card and say, we can't afford the treatment. So we have, but if you yield to them, you are causing dissatisfaction in other patients who have been faithful, loyal, and have followed the processes properly. So good processes are also very important. Transparency is very important, whether it is in economics, in the expenses involved, the treatment plan, or in patient safety. I'll give you the example of the present scenario of the COVID-19, right? Now, we face the challenge in many patients who came to us who were asymptomatic, but came to us for management of spinal injury or other spine problem. And subsequently, it was found out that they were asymptomatic COVID patients. But at the end, they resulted in around 65 one of them resulted in 65 of our patients getting quarantined, and many of our patients getting infected with it, right? So we followed the policy that we should screen all patients. And if we need to screen all patients, we need to be transparently let them know about the importance of doing so. If we don't screen you, we put you at risk, and we put all the staff at risk. So once you transparently let them know, they cooperate with the screening process and they participate in it. Now, in the Indian society, there used to be that feeling that doctors are God or superhumans, right? And that carried on for long. Unfortunately, for a small segment of the society, this got, as you very diplomatically said, that they are sometimes not even recognized as human beings, rather than labeling them as swines, as they would often say, right? But there we have to understand that when people are under pressure, right, they will be also emotionally charged. The expectations set right now in the middle class is also very high. But very often, due to various reasons, people tend to perceive of doctors and hospitals as fleecing patients, right? And sometimes the bigwigs also labeling them as glutere and other things, right? And pardon me for that, but it is the intense media scrutiny also which is partially responsible for this. So any small gap and they would, some of them may also point their fingers directly at the doctors and the healthcare industry. I'm saying some of them, after in 100 clients that you have, there will be 1 or 2 who will behave like this. You should have a policy how to deal with them. You have to deal them properly, but you have to be, again, let them know transparently what your stand was. So there are very many challenges that we face. And many of these patients, if you live up to that expectations, if you are transparent, if you communicate properly, follow all the principles as we said, we'll go back with a lot of patient satisfaction. And that is what we are there for. I'm sorry I took too much time, but our specialty is such that I needed to explain about it in depth. And
no, that's absolutely right, Abla, and it was very interesting to hear you, and while you have points of communication, transparency, empathy, I was also, kind of very surprised that the way you said that. It sounded like the whole project management is happening to meet one patient back to the normalcy. When it comes to, I think somebody's can is there any somebody using some other device also where there is a echo? Please put on mute if yeah. So I think. Uh, Is the okay? So what I'm saying, it was very interesting. But the most important part which I take from your whole this narration is that dilemma which you said that at a time when you see maybe a 22-year young patient coming with a road trauma injury, and where also that this patient may never get back on his or her feet, what you are going to communicate to that patient or to the family, and whatever you are going to communicate, how much of it is going to be accepted by them. Well, it will end up that, okay, you may not be knowing something which they can get from somebody else. You may, so that the whole dilemma of treating a patient and also keeping them positive comes, which is a highlight of your point. I will come back to it. Dr. Bhawna Sirohi, I hope your voice is now, you got the audio, and as in the past session, somebody said that you treated your machine also now. So,
Yeah.
so they take care of cancer patients. And I'm sure, as Dr. Chhabra highlighted, that there is a whole team involvement in managing spinal injury. There is also a team involved in managing cancer treatments. And also, this is something where people come with almost, I think in the most vulnerable state of their mind. If they come to you, weakest state of their mind, they are kind of in the great distress when they get to see about the cancer, and especially in the advanced stage of cancers. How do you deal with these kind of patients? How do you feel, that if you would have that power from God, and you would have given life to everyone, and that everyone would have got that happy to come to you for the cancer treatment?
So thank you, Kamalji, for organizing this. And basically, I think currently we are dealing with the trying times of epic proportions. And as Dr. Chhabra said, the patience levels of everyone are running very low. So there is a lot of anxiety, there is a lot of fear. And as you know, cancer itself has a stigma attached to it. Either people don't want to talk about it, or they come up late, or as you said earlier, that it's correlated with death. Though that is not the case anymore, because cancer, if it is detected early, is curable, though diabetes and hypertension are not, and may have life-threatening consequences if not treated well. Corona has added another dimension of fear to it, which has been counterproductive in cancer patients. So what we are dealing with, expectations for cancer patients, the expectations that they have are living longer, being cured, having a good quality of life, and one more thing, a good death. So I recently had a patient who was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And as Dr. Chhabra said, I completely agree with him that honesty and transparency is so important at the beginning. So my first consultation usually with a patient lasts for about 1, sometimes 2 hours as well. Because in that consultation, I think what we are doing with patients is coming to terms with the cancer diagnosis and also addressing the expectations. What expectations do they have from the doctor? So this lady said very clearly, with chemotherapy, I may live for a year. Without chemotherapy, I may live for 3 months. And it was a very honest discussion. And she said, I will not have chemotherapy. I will just enjoy my life. I'll have wine. I will have cheese, things I love doing. I will do that. She's made an advance directive. She's made a will. So I think all of that comes with upfront discussions about what patients' expectations are. And at times, we are not able to meet all the expectations because there is a lot of hope and hype with lot of new drugs that are coming in. So it's very important. My principle has been not to give patients false hope. A lot of times in India, patients come and say, "Inko bataiye mat, inko cancer hai." You know, right? The patient is walking into a cancer center, so they know, they are educated. Hindi mein bhi likha hai, English mein bhi likha hai ki ye cancer center hai, so they know. So when you ask the patient directly, I think that trust also builds with time. So there is something called shared decision making, and that is equivalent to good communication skills. So I spent a lot of time in UK, and as new consultants, or even when you've been a consultant for a long time, it was mandatory for us to go on a communication skills course for a weekend, where we, you know, did role playing, how to talk, how to have end of life discussions. So this is actually lacking in our medical curriculum a lot, in postgrad curriculum and undergrad curriculum, because this is so important in dealing with patients' expectations. And usually if we are able to communicate well, because a patient comes to you with a lot of trust, if they've chosen you as your oncologist, as your cancer doctor, they have put a lot of faith in you, because most cancer patients will take 1, 2, or maybe even 3 opinions, which is absolutely fair and good. And I encourage it actually. So they put a lot of trust in you. So it's my job to make sure, you know, I deliver the best care. And delivering the best care means you meet their expectations. So having that discussion right at the beginning is very, very important. The other thing which helps in dealing with expectations is having support group meetings. So we have a support group meeting. So I do mainly GI and breast cancers. So I've been back for a year. So we've started support group meetings at least once a week or once a
I think Dr. Sirohi, are you able to hear? There's some internet problem at her end, it seems. Okay, so I think now I should go to Dr. Shuchin Bajaj by the time he will, and we'll go back again in our second set of questions. My team, I'll request to please check with Dr. Sirohi if we can fix the line. Dr. Bajaj, now you, as I was mentioning, that you are, apart from many other important critical healthcare which you are providing in different part of this northern Indian areas, region, you are also now running a dedicated COVID-19 hospital. Now COVID-19, as we know, people are feared about it. They are extremely scared, but they also know mostly that it has very, very less mortality. But when the patient come to you, and if in any case, let's say the outcome is not into that 97% and falls in that 3% of the mortality, how do you see those cases, and what is your feeling when they feel, or they start maybe sometime blaming that the care might have been lacking? How do you see there that at a time when your people, you yourself is toiling hard from morning to evening, maybe I don't know how many hours all of you are working in PPE kits, and I have heard that it is very, very difficult to wear a PPE kit even for 2-3 hours in a continuity. When you are working in these challenging time, and I'm sure trying to get life and the health for everyone, how do you feel when something goes which is not as expected, or which is not within your control?
Yeah, thank you very much, Kamalji. First of all, my sincere gratitudes again to you and your team for organizing this Gratitude Week, and warm greetings to all the panelists and all the audiences. Warm wishes on Doctor's Day. Thank you very much for having us here as well. See, it's the problem in medical science is, Kamalji, that 2 + 2 is never 4. It can be 22 and it can be 0. It can be anywhere from a 0 number to a million number, and nobody can really predict. We can only give you statistics that 97% will survive, as you said. But we have to keep in mind that 15,000 deaths is a statistic, Kamalji. But one death in a family is not a statistic. It is a whole story. It changes the entire family, the entire neighborhood. It hits you so hard that you cannot even imagine what is gone wrong with you. So we have to always remember this power of the one number that we deal with always. Every patient is an individual in their own rights. Doctors and medical professionals and statisticians who see these patients as statistics are the, I think, real reason of this big mismatch between expectations and reality, and the loss of trust that has happened between the medical community and the patients right now. We've been talking about people seeing doctors as gods and superhumans and everything. And we've heard a lot about how that we should manage these expectations and communications. What I feel personally is completely the opposite, and this is what we talk to our team as well daily, that instead of expecting people to look at us as humans instead of gods, we should turn it the other way around and actually see our patients as gods. How did we become doctors? Right? We did not become doctors by studying books. If you could become a doctor by studying a book, many more people would have done that. It is the patients who have taught us with their disease, with their pain, with their suffering, and actually allowed us to become doctors. It is the patients who trust their bodies to us to cut. Can you imagine yourself trusting to hand over your body to a stranger and saying, okay, you can cut me open and I'm here for you? That takes a lot of courage, a lot of fortitude, and a lot of a trust within you to say that, okay, this is a person that I'm giving myself up to. And this is the reason that I consider that the patients are the real gods for us. They are the ones who go through suffering. We don't. They are the ones who suffer the disease. They are the ones who suffer the pain for us all the time, so that we can learn on them, we can experiment on them, and then we can fight with them. All the drug trials that go on, doctors don't take those drugs, right? Doctors just think up a drug, devise it, and then say, okay, let's try it on the patient if it works well or not. So there are very few doctors who've actually tried and tested the drugs on themselves, and we always give them the Nobel Prize if they do. But we don't give the Nobel Prize to all of the thousands of other patients that we try our drugs on or try our experimental treatments on. So we have to always keep in mind that this patient has come to us as an individual, not as part of a statistic that we'll save 97% of them, and has trusted his life, his body completely over to us, whether he knows us or not. And then it becomes easier to explain. So as a COVID doctor, as doctors who we are running 13 hospitals in 4 states of North India, we have 3 hospitals in Delhi which are taking in daily COVID patients, and one of the hospitals is a truly totally dedicated COVID hospital where we are not doing anything else. We have seen patients where we have cured 90-year-olds who came with severe breathlessness. In fact, today we are discharging a 90-year-old lady who came to us in a very sick condition, who we did not really feel that would pull through, because we see that older patients with breathlessness are like really high risk. So we had her in the other 3% data, but she pulled through, became well, and today has been discharged smiling out from the hospital. But we've actually lost a 34-year-old. So how do you explain this? It's not that we did not work hard for the 34-year-old or we worked extra hard for the 90-year-old. All our patients are equal. We work for them with as much diligence as possible. The only thing that will help us, I think, is to keep the communication channels open. So that is another big difference between being a god and being somebody who, as Dr. Chhabra also says, empathizes and travels with the patient on their journey. You don't really get minute-to-minute communication with the god. It is mostly one way. But here you really need to have a minute-to-minute conversation. You have to walk the journey with the patient together, have to keep updating them and their family members on how is it going, whether the journey ahead is choppy or whether it is becoming smoother, or whether there may be some unexpected events that may suddenly come up and shock the living daylights out of us. So effective communication and seeing the other person as the bigger partner in the relationship, I think, is the key to it. Don't look at yourself as the bigger partner. Don't ask the patients to love you, respect you. I think love waxes and wanes a lot. We've seen a lot of lovers having a lot of fights and falling out. I think we should just ask the patient to give us their trust, because trust endures, trust sustains for a longer, much longer time. And we have to practice and we have to behave well enough to earn that trust from the patient. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bajaj. And you have brought very interesting aspect, and that too has always been one thing which all of us also need to be very particular about, or maybe we need to work on it. And that you are saying that we also need to understand the patient, and actually we need to put them in a higher pedestal, because this is they who are at the this is they who are suffering, and they have come to any of the doctor to get rid of that suffering, and they trust them. And that's what Dr. Bhawna Sirohi was also saying, that somebody who come to an oncologist and decides that she or he should become an oncologist for that patient, come with a lot of that trust. And then this comes the whole this story of again, if the outcome is great, it's God. If not that great, many times people take it by their stride, and many times it comes to something which is not that a pleasant outcome. As Dr. Chhabra also said, that the people start feeling that that we were fleeced, and many times when the life is saved, these things are not coming into the concern. But if the life is lost, then suddenly these things also become an important aspect for them, which they start raising up. I would request Dr. Bhawna Sirohi, because she got cut off in between, so if she would like to complete her thought, and then I'll go to the next set of questions.
So I think I'm not sure whether you listened at the end, I think listening to our patients is very important. And I completely agree that patients are our teachers and true heroes. Every patient teaches us something. We learn something from every patient. And it's important that, because at the heart of everything that we do, the reason we become doctors is to help the patients, and also, as other speakers have said, to help the society as a whole as well. COVID-19 has just thrown another spanner, especially for cancer. It's quite tough, because there is mental, physical, financial stress that patients are having to undergo, and I think it's very important that empathy, compassion, all of these things from not only the doctors, but I think the nurses are also real heroes in helping us look after the patients.
I think our honorable guest of honor for today, Honorable MOS Health, is about to join in a minute. Already the team has joined here. So we will, welcome him and, hear from him once he's on the screen. In between, we can continue our discussion. And so I'll go back to Dr. Danda. Dr. Danda, you also, so as Dr. Chhabra said, Dr. Bhawna said, it's a whole teamwork. And then you had the area which you are operating in, the immunology and rheumatology, where that too is something I heard in some of your session, that autoimmune diseases and start damaging almost the entire body, and their impact is almost on every organ, as Dr. Chhabra said, which happens in the spinal injuries. How many times you feel overwhelmed with the expectations and suffering of your patients, and you start just wishing that if you had those power to prevent this inevitable, or to give them immediate relief, life, whatever. How many times you feel and just overwhelmed with that, as any patient or if their family can feel?
Thank you for asking a very relevant question. Yes, rheumatology is, as you have very rightly said, it deals with not just arthritis and rheumatism, but with patients with multi-system involvement due to autoimmune pathology. And according to WHO data, 1/3 of human beings in lifetime experience some musculoskeletal symptom, but but about 5% have got systemic autoimmune rheumatic diseases, something like 1% rheumatoid arthritis, and so on. It's a big burden on the community. The good news is, for the last 20 years, and every day from now, this decade onwards, there have been so much newer development of very rewarding treatment that today, for getting a classically deformed rheumatoid hand for MBBS students exam becomes difficult, because when you diagnose them early and treat them, what is called not treat to target, treat them with specific markers to go by, we have very good results. As Dr. Sirohi said very nicely, that cancer is curable, but diabetes and blood pressure is not curable. So we are on the other side. It's not curable like diabetes and blood pressure, but like the quality of life diabetes and hypertension can get with good treatment is almost like a near normal life. Same is for rheumatic diseases. There is good outcome. Having said about the load to the hospitals, yes, it is a huge load, and most of them may not even able to reach the rheumatologists. They may be going to general physicians, general practitioners, everywhere. But the overall, the community load of rheumatic disease is huge, and in referral hospitals like ours, we get a huge load of patients, and doctors have to work much more than their capacity to see patients with rheumatic diseases. So we are overwhelmed. But the good thing is there is treatment algorithm. There is a specific treatment algorithms for most diseases by various societies as well as institutes, which can, for an expert or a trainee in the specialty, it doesn't take that much of a time. So yes, we get once in a while overwhelmed by sick patients like lupus or vasculitis. They are very sick patients. They come to hospital and they are as sick as any other sick patient, like with sepsis or any other complication. So what I go back to, in spite of the overload, how to overcome this is to have specific treatment algorithm based on evidence, which most of us do. The second thing is, which Dr. Sirohi said, I appreciate very nicely. What she said is basically make the patient a party to the treatment plan. Even though there is evidence-based treatment, it's like you go to a shop to buy something. There are so many choices for something. You also have so many options of treatment for economically advantaged ones and economically disadvantaged ones. So you should probably explain all the options. So we always explain that and make the patients party to it. And it's always good to listen to what patients say. In spite of whatever knowledge and experience we have, sometimes patient can judge very well. I give an example of a very interesting story, which I didn't tell during the initial question you asked me. In my very early career, when I started working in CNC Vellore as a rheumatologist, one poor farmer, he was in late 20s, and he came completely crippled, and his knees are completely like a contracture, and X-rays showing no space in the knee joint, and he was carried in a stretcher. And I given him some medications. I said, I'll do the investigations. I'll see you later. He has heard from somewhere that I give joint injections and he can get better with that. I told him, your joints have got no space at all, and I don't think I'm going to inject your joint. I'm not going to get any good result with that. But in spite of that, he insisted. So I finally thought, okay, there's no harm. We know all the safety measures and we do it routinely. So let me try. And you will not believe me, I injected it reluctantly. After 3 days, he comes walking in my clinic. And I was not expecting, because the joint space was little. But we know now that in chronic inflammation also, nothing is burnt out. There's always a burning phase. So he responded to that. So sometimes listening to patients help. The other thing is what Dr. Sirohi said, making those patient awareness meetings. I was the president of Indian Rheumatology Association till last December, and I had formed a patient society for the rheumatology patients. And we started patient meetings across the nation. We have done more than 10 of them by now. And what we do there is, instead of doctors giving lectures, patients come and speak, each of them for 5 minutes, not about the personal specific problem, it's not a consultation, but the general doubts about the disease. And we have panelists, about 5 rheumatologists sitting there, and they respond to that. And we found it so rewarding. About 200 patients and relatives and 5 doctors. What I find is, instead of having CMEs where the doctors are educated, sometimes many doctors get bored of CMEs because everybody is educating each other, and sometimes they feel too easy to teach me more. But I feel the patients can be taught much more relevant things which they do not know, because the mind is filled with misinformation. And when we communicate, as Dr. Chhabra and others say, communication, when you speak to a patient, you'll be surprised to see not even 20% registered on the first time. And sometimes it is misinterpreted. So a good ongoing dialogue with the patients is a very, very good method. And we have found that it's very useful to continue the dialogue with the patients in all the specialties of medicine. And I think that is more important. I call them continuing patient education than continuing medical education. And I think that should be on the strength of present day situation where there's so much of mistrust between the doctor and the patient has been created. And Dr. Bajaj has said a very nice point. I appreciate that. He said about being sensitive to the patient's problems and making patient your hero. All of us realize that if we fall sick, even with a simple cough and cold, we feel anxious. And as doctors, we imagine all the worst things. And what happens is, even if my colleague, who may be junior to me, coming and telling, you'll be all right, sir. The 2 days time will be all right. You will not believe, being a medically knowledgeable scientific doctor, we all need. We all need encouragement. We all need positive reinforcement. Therefore, I tell my students always, when you go to see a patient bedside or outpatient or the emergency department, you must always consider the same situation when you or your family members go to the hospital with certain expectations. When we go as patients with our family members or ourselves, we sometimes can see through the defects in our healthcare system. And that is the best way to feel. You can feel the patient's pain only when you feel it too. So we have to imagine ourselves in the same scenario. Like me, have my wife and son and parents or everybody in the family, the patients also have it. So then the expectation. At the same time, it's also very unfortunate what is happening across the nation now, that not only is a misconcept, but hooliganism and some kind of antisocial elements are creating trouble. But I think by and large, there is no way to get rid of those by confrontation. We can only get rid of those by education. And again, I'll give another beautiful example of one of my teachers. I've been talking about 25, maybe 27 years back during my training in rheumatology. One lupus patient.
Dr. Dandas, sorry, let me go to Dr. Chhabra now. And you made some very interesting point about making CPE continued patients education rather than CME. And it's wonderful to hear the experiences which you shared, and then you endorse that the communication again is an important aspect here. Let me go to Dr. Chhabra, because at 1:15, sorry, I'll be a little rushing things, because 1:15 the minister will be coming to address. So Dr. Chhabra, कितनी बार आपको लगता है कि जो पेशेंट आपके पास आया है उसका जो पेन है, या जो आपने बोला कि एक यंग एज में 20-22 साल में, 15 साल में भी हो सकता है, 10 साल में भी हो सकता है, वो पेशेंट जब जिससे आप देखते हैं कि नाउ दिस पेशेंट इज गोइंग टू बी डिसेबल्ड फॉर लाइफ, and though you trust and believe at the same time that you may get a miracle, and then you may be able with the self confidence, self encouragement of that patient, positive mindset कि शायद मिरेकल भी हो जाएगा, अच्छा रिजल्ट भी आएगा. लेकिन कितनी बार ऐसा लगता है कि शायद आपके हाथ में वो पावर होती जो कि आप everyone could have just come, and then maybe after 2-3 months, 1 month, 15 days of your hospital stay, you said that there are long stays at your hospital, the patient could have got that life back which they lost because of any reason, because of accident, because of something. Nobody gets into the accident by intentionally.
होप हमेशा रखनी चाहिए, क्योंकि अगर होप नहीं रखेंगे तो इंसान तरक्की नहीं करेगा। हमेशा कैसे बेहतर कर सकते हैं आउटकम्स, हमें वो हमेशा सोचना चाहिए ताकि हम वो डिलीवर कर सके जिसके लिए हम हैं, पेशेंट केयर। पर उसका ये मतलब नहीं कि हमें ओवरवेल्म हो जाना चाहिए। अगर हम ओवरवेल्म होंगे तो इसमें पेशेंट का ही नुकसान है और वही पर्पस डिफीट हो रहा है जिसके लिए आप कर रहे हो पेशेंट केयर, है ना। हमें ये समझना चाहिए और जानना चाहिए कि हम भगवान नहीं बन सकते, वी आर नॉट गॉड्स, ठीक है। हम कभी कभी क्योर कर पाएंगे, हम अक्सर मतलब हील कर पाएंगे, ठीक है, और हम हमेशा कंसोल कर पाएंगे, सोलेस ले पाएंगे। अगर ये ही धारणा लेके चले कि हम भगवान नहीं हैं, तभी वो पेशेंट के हित में है। और हमें ये भी समझना चाहिए कि कई बार ना वो जो नोशन है डिविनिटी का कि भगवान है, ठीक है, वो डॉक्टर में नहीं होती, वो पेशेंट चाहता है डॉक्टर में वो रूप देखना ताकि वो इतना मजबूत हो जाए कि नेचर से भी फाइट कर सके और उसको ठीक कर सके। तो उसमें हमें ओवरवेल्म नहीं हो जाना चाहिए। कहीं कहीं वो ये फीलिंग्स ट्रांसफर कर देता है डॉक्टर में, एक रियलिस्टिक डॉक्टर पेशेंट रिलेशनशिप से। तो उस भावना में बह नहीं जाना हमें, क्योंकि उसमें पेशेंट का नुकसान है। क्योंकि मैंने कहा हमें सिंपथाइज नहीं, हमें एम्पथाइज करना है, हमें एम्पावर करना है ताकि वो एक नॉर्मल जिंदगी में वापस आ सके। तो ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है देखना। और अगर हमें पेशेंट के हित में रहना है तो कहते हैं बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है कि एक प्रोफेशनल रिलेशनशिप रखिए। भावनाओं में बह जाने से पेशेंट का नुकसान हो सकता है। अगर आपने रियलिस्टिक एक्सपेक्टेशंस रखी हैं पेशेंट में, तो पेशेंट ओवरवेल्म नहीं होना चाहिए, ना आपको होने की जरूरत होनी चाहिए। पर हम इंसान हैं, हम भावनाओं में बहेंगे, और ये समझना चाहिए कि वो पेशेंट्स पे, उनके अटेंडेंट्स में जो बीत रही है, ज्यादा चांस है कि वो भावनाओं में बह जाएंगे। तो अगर वो बह रहे हैं तो हमें उन्हें समझाना है। तभी हमारी टीम में हमेशा एक साइकोलॉजिस्ट होती हैं, और जरूरत पड़े तो वो साइकेट्रिस्ट को रेफर करते हैं, और एक पीयर काउंसलर भी होते हैं। पीयर काउंसलर जैसे खुद जो स्पाइनल इंजर्ड हैं, जब हम पेशेंट को कहते हैं कि क्या हुआ, आपके पैर नहीं चल रहे तो 2 हाथ तो चल रहा है, या 2 हाथ पैर नहीं चल रहे तो दिमाग तो चल रहा है, इंसान की खूबी तो दिमाग है। तो पेशेंट सोचता है कि डॉक्टर साहब आप क्या समझोगे, जिस पे बीतती है वो ही समझता है। तो अगर आप यही चीजें उनसे कहलवाओ जिस पे बीती हो एक स्पाइनल इंजर्ड, तो वो ज्यादा समझ सकते हैं। तो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट बात यहाँ जो मैं कहना चाहूंगा, कभी ओवरवेल्म ना हो, भावनाओं में ना बह जाए। बहेंगे बट अपने आप को रोकना है। बट हमेशा सीखने की कोशिश कीजिए। अगर पेशेंट्स की एक्सपेक्टेशंस अनरियलिस्टिक हो रही है, एक तो डिनायल होता है ना कि वो डिप्रेशन में है, तो आपने उनको ठीक ट्रीट करवाना है, टीम से साइकोलॉजिस्ट का रोल लाना है। अगर फिर भी अटेंडेंट्स की है तो आप कहाँ गलत गए, कहीं आपने अनरियलिस्टिक एक्सपेक्टेशंस तो नहीं रखी, वो देखने की जरूरत है। तो सीखिए, बहिए मत भावनाओं में, ये पेशेंट के हित में है। तो हाँ, जब एक यंग इंसान चले जाता है ना, तो डॉक्टर भी इंसान है, उसका दिल भी रोता है, ठीक है। बट अगर आप ज्यादा उसमें डिप्रेस हो जाए, बाकी पेशेंट्स को आप केयर ठीक से नहीं दे सकेंगे। तो आपको ये एक्सपेक्ट करना है कि जिंदगी में जो उसने लिखा उसको एक्सेप्ट करना है, अपनी तरफ से बेस्ट करना है, उसमें कोई गुंजाइश नहीं रहनी चाहिए। बाद में अफसोस नहीं रहना चाहिए कि ये नहीं किया, अगर ये किया हुआ फिर भी होगा, बट वो अगले बार सीख के उसको इम्प्रूव कीजिए। उसी में पेशेंट का है।
Thank you so much, Dr. Chhabra, and very appreciated that patients will come with all their expectations, all that trauma, वो सारी भावनाओं के साथ आते हैं। उनके लिए जैसा डॉक्टर सुचिन बजाज ने भी कहा कि जो हम नंबर्स देखते हैं 15,000 17,000 डेथ्स कोविड-19 में हुई भारत में, तो हमारे लिए वो नंबर हैं। अब वो नंबर्स 15,000 से कब 17,000 हो जाते हैं हमें पता नहीं चलता, और शायद हमारे अंदर कोई फीलिंग भी नहीं आती। वो 17,000 से 20,000 भी हो जाएंगे, 22,000 भी हो जाएंगे, या 30,000 हो जाएंगे, और वी विल कीप कंटिन्यूइंग दैट। बट वो एक एक नंबर, एक जिंदगी है पूरी, जिससे पता नहीं कितनी सारी जिंदगियां जुड़ी होती हैं। और उसमें ये डॉक्टर का जो रोल है कि वो अपनी कोशिश भर के उसको ट्रीट करने की कोशिश करेंगे, बचाने की कोशिश करेंगे, डिस्पाइट दैट। जैसे डॉक्टर सुचिन ने भी कहा कि डिस्पाइट दैट सम टाइम यू सी दैट लोअर चांसेस ऑफ रिट्रीविंग। 90 साल की एक महिला का जो इन्होंने कहा कि ट्रीटमेंट करके और कोविड-19 को क्योर करके वो घर जा रही है, डिस्पाइट दैट कि ये शायद एक केस ऐसा माना जा सकता था कि यहाँ पर चांसेस कम है, स्टिल उनकी टीम ने काम किया। आप लोग बहुत सारे पेशेंट्स के साथ ऐसा काम कर रहे हैं जिससे कि वो हेल्प हो। तो थैंक यू फॉर ब्रिंगिंग आउट दैट एस्पेक्ट। डॉक्टर सिरोही, आई वुड लाइक टू हियर फ्रॉम यू कि आपका क्या मानना है, ये जो पेन और डिस्पेयर में लोग आते हैं और कई बार आप में भगवान देखते हैं। ऐसा नहीं है कि आपने अपने आप को भगवान बताया या किसी डॉक्टर ने बताया, जैसे कि डॉक्टर छाबरा का कहना है कि इट इज द पेशेंट हु कम विद दैट इमोशन, क्योंकि उसको बीमारी होती है, जब पेन होता है तो उसको धरती पे भगवान शायद डॉक्टर में ही दिखता है। और ये कोविड में तो और भी ज्यादा प्रूव हो गया, जब हमारे मंदिर बंद हो गए लेकिन अस्पतालों में ही एक ऐसी जगह थी जो हमारे लिए खुले थे। तो आपको क्या लगता है, और आप क्या एक मैसेज देना चाहते हो उन बहुत सारे पेशेंट्स को और उन फैमिलीज को जो आपके पास आते हैं और जो इस एक्सपेक्टेशन से आते हैं कि दे विल बी एबल टू रिवाइव लाइफ और बी हेल्दी, और कई बार अगर आउटकम वैसा नहीं होता तो क्या उन्हें, हाउ डू दे शुड रिएक्ट एंड व्हाट दे शुड फील एंड एक्सपेक्ट?
So I agree with our panelists that we are not gods, we are humans, and we do get overwhelmed. The patients get overwhelmed as well. And COVID, जैसे मैंने कहा, COVID और कैंसर का आपको एक एग्जांपल देती हूँ। एक लेडी, उनको ब्रेस्ट कैंसर यहाँ पे डायग्नोज हुआ, पर उनकी बेटी एक सिंगापुर में है, एक बैंगलोर में है, एक दुबई में है, तीनों बेटियां, वो यहाँ अकेली हैं। So, to do the Zoom call like last night when I did it, so it is overwhelming. It is quite painful and distressing because the patient is all alone over here. All her support system is in different countries and they are not able to travel back. So it's very difficult to say that you don't get overwhelmed, And cancer, what happens is with time, patients become your friends and family. It's not that you see them once, you see them for a lifetime. So an oncologist and a patient ka jo relationship hai, over time it evolves into a friendship, and with the support group meetings as well, it completely changes. With COVID, I would have a very humble submission. I know we are short of time. That don't let the fear of COVID stop you from taking medical care. I have seen every week in the last 3 weeks, at least 2 or 3 patients who come so late that either their cancer has advanced to a higher stage or they have become untreatable because the liver is in failure or the lungs have failed. So please do not ignore your symptoms, take medical care. And my humble submission to the government would be that from COVID, there's a dashboard. 400 deaths per day. But with cancer, the WHO statistics in India are 2,000 deaths per day. And those patients have to go somewhere. So we must make sure that in tertiary and quaternary hospitals, we have a certain number of beds. I don't know, you can argue about that figure, 50%. I feel it should be 60 to 70%, which should remain for cardiac, orthopedic, cancer, other specialties as well. I completely understand that COVID is important. We actually stopped screening for cancer in the first and second phase of lockdown. But we know that, this thing is here to stay now. We have to learn to live with it. So it's important that, we get our checkups done and not ignore the symptoms. That's very, very important.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sirohi. And it's heartening to hear that in the process of healing, you do get involved, and doctors do become the friends and fellow traveler in the journey of healing. And Dr. Chhabra also kind of echoed the same sentiment that doctors do need to become the part of that journey, but at the same time, yes, Dr. Siro, you want to say something?
So, I'll just give you an example of a patient I just saw, and given a new diagnosis, we spent an hour and a half, and she said, can I hug you? And immediately, you think patient safety comes first. You said, no, it's not safe for you. I held her hand, but then immediately washed, so washed my hands, got her to wash as well. So COVID has thrown such curveballs and challenges, doing Zoom calls in the evening with either parents in Hyderabad or daughters in different parts of the world. It's quite tough for cancer patients, and I feel for the doctors as well. So again, message to doctors and cancer specialists, don't hesitate to take help, because it's important to talk to, even if it's a psychologist or your family members, or talking here as well.
Very true, doctor, and thank you so much for sharing these experiences. Dr. Shuchin Bajaj, Dr. Sirohi said that there are patients whose family are different part of the world, and they can't come because it's COVID-related lockdowns of travel. But you are treating patients who have COVID. Their family can't come to them. But you are the extended family of these patients. Your team is the extended family of these patients. They, as Dr. Chhabra said, that we will cure sometime, we will heal often, and we will care mostly. So when these patients lying in isolation beds of your hospital, they are looking for that solace, that comfort, which comes from their family being around at normal time. How do you fill this gap for these patients? How do you ask your team to fill this gap?
Kamalji, this is something that I have learned from my very first day in medical school, and this is something that I talk to all my team members whenever I meet them, whenever they are joining Ujala Cygnus. This is the ethos that we carry through and makes it much easier for us and makes the errors much lesser. So our thinking is that we should see all our patients as our family members, immediate family members. So I tell all my team members that imagine this was your father lying here in this bed, or your brother or your sister, and then make the decision what to do. तो अगर आप सोचते हैं कि आपके पिताजी वहां लेटे हैं, तो आप वो कभी ये डिसीजन नहीं लेते कि अरे ये मेरा काम नहीं है, ये तो नर्स का काम है, या ये वार्ड बॉय का काम है, या इनका डायपर वार्ड बॉय चेंज करेगा, या कैथेटर मैं नहीं लगाऊंगा. You will never do that, because you would have done it for your father. If you were capable, you would do it for your father, or you would run around and get somebody to do it immediately. You would not wait here कि अरे अभी नर्स आएगी तो कर देगी. So this is the ethos that I was taught by my professor the first day, because working in government hospitals, can be very stressful. जब हम रेजिडेंसी करते थे तो हफ्ता 10 दिन घर नहीं जा पाते थे, 70-80 पेशेंट्स फ्लोर पे, बेड्स पे. So, and we were the only residents there where I did my residency. There were no senior residents also. So junior residents, PG students had to do everything themselves. So हमने टॉयलेट में जाके डिलीवरीज भी कराई हैं पेशेंट्स की, हमने उनको ब्रश भी कराया है, हमने उनको बैठ के कहानियां भी सुनाई है, हमने उनकी ट्रॉली भी चलाई है, सब कुछ किया हुआ है हमने. So I don't feel that any work is below me or above me. I could do a lumbar puncture and I could run the trolley of the patient and feed him at the same time. So हमें कभी नहीं लगता था कि हमें कोई भी ऐसा काम है जो हम नहीं कर सकते हैं. हम प्रोफेसर भी हैं, हम वार्ड बॉय भी हैं, हम स्वीपर भी हैं, और अगर ये नहीं कर सकते हैं तो we have no right to be sitting there with the patient. And this is what we try to instill as much into our teams as possible. We can understand that with the rising consumerism and the changing behavior status and a lot of new generation coming in, it gets more and more difficult, because the era of individualism is truly here. अभी तो अपने परिवार को ही उतना नहीं समझ पाते, दूसरों को अपना परिवार समझना बड़ा मुश्किल है, young generation को समझाना इतना. But we try and do it as much as possible. And in COVID wards, technology has helped us to a great deal. So you have seen some of the videos that we make. So patients can do video calls with their relatives. It gives them a lot of strength. And जैसे कि डॉक्टर छाबड़ा ने भी बोला, डॉक्टर भावना ने भी बोला, सी द प्लेसिबो इफेक्ट इज रियली स्ट्रॉन्ग. ये विश्वास पे ही दुनिया कायम है. अगर आप विश्वास करते हैं किसी चीज में तो बहुत ज्यादा आपके अंदर स्ट्रेंथ बढ़ती है, बहुत ज्यादा पावर बढ़ती है, आप बहुत ज्यादा इलाज को रिस्पॉन्सिव हो जाते हैं. अगर नहीं विश्वास करते हैं तो इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर यू टू क्योर योरसेल्फ. तो वो कहानी हम सबने पढ़ी है, द लास्ट लीफ. अगर आप जीना चाहते हैं तो उस एक पेंटेड पत्ते को भी अगर आप असली समझेंगे तो यू विल होल्ड ऑन टू इट एंड यू विल गेट थ्रू. बट if you don't want to live, you will just see leaves falling again and again, and you feel that you will fall with one of them. So trust, as I said in my earlier interaction as well, trust is the most important factor. If you can build this trust, if you can hold on to it, that is everything. So interacting with patients, with their families, communication, transparent and clear communication with all possible outcomes, I think it goes a long way. It's not like that patients only want 100% cure. They want it if they do not really know what exactly is the journey going to be about. But if you sit down with them, you tell them the journey, like Dr. Bhawna said, अगर आप उनको कैंसर हॉस्पिटल में लाके बोलोगे नहीं नहीं इनको कैंसर है ही नहीं है तो ठीक हो जाएंगे, that is not the way to do it. They understand that मुझे कैंसर है, मेरे को ये प्रॉब्लम्स हो सकती हैं. I would rather prefer to have a glass of wine with cheese rather than having chemotherapy tomorrow. But that is a decision for the patient to make because it is her body, it is her life. You have to just participate in the decision and walk as much as possible and help in making the right decision. If you behave like a god and you impose your decisions on them and say बस ऐसे ही होना है, अगर नहीं समझ में आ रहा तो भागो यहाँ से, दूसरे डॉक्टर के पास जाओ, हमें कोई लेना देना नहीं, आप हमारे से नहीं कराना चाहते तो निकल जाइए, all those things will not really go a long way. So empathy, communication, trust, I think that is the only way to take care of the patients, and especially in situations where the patients are physically alone, like in COVID wards, it is a big stress for all of us. So we talk about our stress that we are in PPE kits, we are working in the COVID wards, but look at the stress that the patient is actually going through. हमें ये स्ट्रेस है कि शायद हमें हो ना जाए, बट जिसको हो चुका है कोविड, उसके स्ट्रेस लेवल्स तो आप सोचिए. आप उनके साथ बैठ के बात करिए, एम्पैथाइज करिए, उनकी फैमिली मेंबर्स से इंटरेक्ट करिए, टेक्नोलॉजी का यूज करिए. आप जितना करेंगे, आई थिंक द जर्नी बिकम्स इजियर एंड इजियर.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shuchin. It is very, it's very heartening to hear all these aspects of a doctor's life. कि आप लोग what all it goes, and the way you are describing that as a doctor, every doctor also try to, kind of live life with that patient, empathize that patient, try to understand their needs and emotional challenges also. I just wanted to, highlight one of the point here also, because when we talk about from God to, not so God situation, I heard that, there were some kind of news reports going on saying that, hospitals overcharge when it comes to COVID-19 cases and all that. What do you see? And I think you have also seen this kind of allegations made by some of the hospitals, media sections. What it really goes, and how this the whole extra active media trial happens. Is there anyone to listen to you also, or a hospital, that what actually happened, what the patient preferred for, what the patient wanted, what kind of services or fancies also come sometime? Because I heard from a doctor that they were treating a cardiology patient, and the doctor went to the patient and asked that, is it all going well with you and you are recuperating well? The patient said, yes, of course, doctor, everything is all fine. The only problem is that I don't get good coffee here. So sometime getting good coffee, good tea, or good, the chocolate milk which you wanted for your wife at the maternity ward did not come to you at that time when you asked, and that become a big problem for you. And you started going that this hospital does not care, nobody is there to listen. How do you feel on that?
So see, healthcare is like hospitals, hotels, public service, all mixed into one, which is supposed to be affordable as well. And affordability is so subjective, Kamalji, that for someone 10 rupees may be very expensive, and for someone 10 lakh rupees may be very cheap. You can't really say what is affordable for everybody blanket, right? So if you look at the Indian healthcare service in comparison to Europe or US, with the same quality, with even better outcomes compared to the number of patients we treat, the healthcare costs are actually less than 10% of what is being charged in the Western countries. But if you see that what is the actual healthcare cost compared to the income levels of the patients that are treated, it may be hugely variable. So problem is not that is it affordable or not. Affordability, as I said, is very subjective. You can look at affordability in very, very various angles. The problem is that the whole system of fee for service at the point of service is a broken system. I don't feel that this is a sustainable system at all. We are moving towards that system with great speed from what we were earlier. Now almost 80% of healthcare is done at a fee for service mechanism. The problems are that in this fee for service mechanism where the doctor says that, okay, I will treat you and you give me this much money, the incentives of the doctor and the patient are completely misaligned. Right? The doctor's incentive is you fall sick, you have a heart attack, you come to me, I will put a stent in you and I will get the money for the stent. The patient's incentive is not to have the heart attack at all. Right? So these incentives are completely at cross purposes to each other. But nobody is incentivized to make sure that the patient does not have a heart attack. Nobody is educating him. Nobody is working with him for preventive care, for primary health care, because those are not the star branches, the glamorous branches. Nobody pays any money to the doctor for being in a preventive healthcare clinic, advocating wellness and exercise. And if he charges a fees for that, people will say, "अरे कुछ बताया भी नहीं, दवाई भी नहीं लिखी, फीस क्यों ली हमसे पता नहीं डॉक्टर साहब ने जाके बस बोला कसरत करो, वो तो हमें कोई भी बता देता, डॉक्टर साहब से फीस लेने की क्या जरूरत है?" So nobody is paying the doctor for advocating wellness. We are spending all the money on treating sickness, not on health. Healthcare is a misnomer in the Indian or the American system of medicine. There is no healthcare. It is only sick care. 80% of our money goes into sick care. So if we do not advocate health, and this balance of power at the point of care, if it is not taken care of, see, it is a very opaque transaction. The balance of power is completely in the hand of the doctor at the point of the transaction. So it is natural for the patient to feel cheated. If the patient goes with a chest pain and the doctor says, नहीं नहीं कुछ नहीं, आपको तो बस गैस है, एक इंजेक्शन लगाइए, घर चले जाइए, तो बहुत अच्छा डॉक्टर है. बट अगर वो डॉक्टर कहता है नहीं आपको हार्ट अटैक हो सकता है, आप एंजियोग्राफी करा लीजिए, तो ये तो बहुत खराब डॉक्टर है, तो लुटेरा है, इसने मेरी एंजियोग्राफी लिख दीजिए, और वो कुछ आया भी नहीं एंजियोग्राफी में. तो हाउ डू यू बैलेंस दैट? इफ द पेशेंट कुछ हो जाए रात को उसको जाके, अगर वो नहीं बचे और बोले जी एंजियोग्राफी नहीं करी उस टाइम, उसने बहुत बड़ी गलती करी है, तो सिजेरियन किया तो गलती है कि वे सिजेरियन कर दिया जबरदस्ती, नहीं किया बच्चे को कुछ हो गया तो गलती है. क्यों? क्योंकि पेशेंट को लगता है पैसे कमाने के लिए सिजेरियन हो रहा है या पैसे कमाने के लिए एंजियोग्राफी हो रही है, और मेरे पास कोई पावर नहीं थी डिसाइड करने के लिए. डॉक्टर ने बोल दिया सिजेरियन करना है तो मुझे कराना ही पड़ा जी. देन ही विल क्रिप अबाउट इट फॉर 1 ईयर की जबरदस्ती कर दिया. अगर मैं कैसे डिसाइड करूं कि कराना है कि नहीं? If there could be this trust that this is not being done for money, and the doctor is not earning money by doing the cesarean, rather is putting in more effort, going into the OT at 2 o'clock, getting into a PPE kit, risking his and her life to do the surgery on you. If that kind of a thing goes, then the patient will be rather thankful कि अच्छा रात को 2 बजे आके जी cesarean कर दिया, उन्होंने मेरी जान बचा ली. बट राइट नाउ इट इज नहीं, 2 बजे आए और उनको टाइम बचाना था और पैसे कमाने थे, इसलिए सीरियस. So this whole balance of power has to change. The fee for service at the point of transaction has to disappear somehow. if the patient has to pay a fee on a differential scale for a surgery, not a surgery, conservative treatment, then he will obviously feel that the surgery was done for money. And he has no power to decide whether to go for that surgery or not. So he will always feel cheated. So this is something that the whole ecosystem has to take care of. Problem is we do face a lot of this as private healthcare providers because people always have this issue in their mind. And there is obviously nobody to listen to the hospital side, even if the patient is unjustified completely. We get a lot of patients who file complaints just for the heck of complaining, and then they say, "अच्छा मुझे कुछ पैसे ऐसे मेरे refund करा दीजिए तो मैं complaint वापस कर लूँगा." So all of this keeps going on, and this is something that we have been facing for a very, very long time, and I think this will keep going on unless we change the ecosystem completely.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shuchin. You highlighted that this, the fee for service mechanism is something which leads to that kind of perception among the patients, and patients also. This is also, again, the whole topic which we are highlighting throughout these 7 days is that where this trust has gone, because that has to be there, because you don't know whether the surgery is going to be the right option or non-surgery is going to be the right option. But at the same time, when something is done or not done, on the consequences, you come back and say, no, this is what not done, and that's why this outcome has come. So Dr. Chhabra was smiling when you were talking and when I asked this question. So I just asked Dr. Chhabra a quick remark, and then I'll go to Dr. Danda. So Dr. Chhabra, quickly, what do you feel when, when this kind of scenario, when the treatment goes well, great, and if it is not going well, then it is, overcharging, it is fleecing and all that allegations which come along with that.
Yep, this has particular relevance to the current scenario when there have been a lot of media reports, public accusations, and also sometimes the government acknowledging that patients are being fleeced, right? I would only want to say one thing. Don't proclaim someone to be negligent and criminal unless you give them a fair trial, right? How do you say that they are being charged more? Have we done some study? How do we know that in the government setup, not more expenses are being charged to the government for the management of same type of patients, right? You know that the entire healthcare industry has been put under severe stress due to the pandemic. The turnover of institutions has gone down to 20 to 25% because routine surgeries, routine patients are not being seen. Everywhere across the globe, the healthcare industry has been substantially subsidized by the government or taken care of. We have seen so many economic packages. Has there been any economic package for the healthcare industry? How do they sustain? How do they survive? And if the front line falls, what will happen to the pandemic? So if you see that there are n number of other expenses that are there due to the pandemic on the institution, right? There are expenses on the PPE kits. They can be substantial. They need to spend on the infrastructure because you need to segregate COVID and non-COVID patients. You need to create a new infrastructure. You need to sometimes ensure that there is enough ventilation, sometimes negative pressure. In the OT, you need to have special things. Also, you need to also take into consideration the expenses which go into the quarantine of the staff, right? You need to go into the expenses that are there when these quarantine staff needs to be given food, needs to be given accommodation, their family needs to be taken care of. So there are n number of other expenses. Has someone done a realistic study and then say, okay, these institutions are fleecing the patients? If it has been done and if it comes out that they are overcharging, fine, get them to be proclaimed guilty. What is, on the other hand, what is the attention being given to the healthcare industry to survive this crisis which is taking place? So I would just beg that please give a fair trial before you proclaim someone guilty.
It's an important point, but many times what happens in the media, I think any trial which they do is the only trial, and many times they don't have everyone to listen to that for their trials.